The Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you live, and Mike Papantonio, the star of and host of Ring of Fire Radio, along with Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Sam Cedar, and an attorney with Levin Law, and ringoffireradio.com is their website. Hey, Pap, welcome back.
How are you, Tom?
I am great, but actually I'm getting better. I was kind of a little under the weather yesterday, but I'm fine today. Hope you're well.
I am.
Great. So what's on your mind today? I understand that bribery, cover-ups, and illegal testing are no longer in the movies anymore?
Yeah, well, that's one of the underreported stories by corporate media. What's interesting about this case is GlaxoSmithKline was caught
the drug company.
Yeah, it's a drug company. Was a UK drug company funneling about $500 million into bribery scams that they were running in China. What they were doing is they were bribing doctors directly, buying prostitutes for doctors, buying trips for doctors, and in exchange, the doctor would prescribe their medicine. And so the interesting thing about it is that for a couple of years now, people have been asking, why is GlaxoSmithKline selling so many drugs? Because it's almost 2-to-1 with the other companies.
In China.
In China. And so they found out, well, that's why, because of the bribe scams that are going on. It really is a time of big drugs gone wild, Tom. That's the only way I can describe it.
Hang on just a second, Pap. Elliot Spitzer gets caught with a hooker. He loses his political career, and he could have gone to jail. A lot of men do, actually, and far more women, go to jail for engaging in that profession. And here's a company that's not. This isn't one guy, porking one prostitute.
Right.
I mean, if it's $500 million, that's a hell of a lot of people.
Oh, no, it's massive, and it's not just doctors. It went all the way up to the regulatory agencies. You remember how we caught the oil industry doing the same thing with our environmental groups that were supposed to be overseeing the drilling, the mineral organizations in the Gulf.
Right.
Well, they were doing the same thing. They were having prostitute parties, cocaine parties.
So where's the Spitzer prosecutor? Why isn't he trying to put the GlaxoSmithKline executives in jail? Why isn't he shutting the company down here in the United States?
Well, that's exactly the question most people should ask, especially after they already had to pay $3 billion just a couple of years ago for all kinds of fraud. The descriptions of the fraud are almost overwhelming. But so they pay $3 billion, and now they're caught using $500 million worth of bribe money all over China. And, truthfully, it goes on in the United States just in a different way. Yep. They bribe, for example, they'll go to a university and they'll fund a university and bribe the university into having their scientists or doctors write favorable reports about a drug that they know is hugely dangerous. And the scientist that writes it, the doctor that writes it, doesn't really care about the consumer. I mean, they write it because they get paid. The university makes money. So there's all different shades of bribery that the drug industry has been involved with for an awful long time. And this is just one of them. They bribed, you might remember, they bribed the German government, East German government, into allowing them to perform human guinea pig studies on East Berliners, to where 50,000 people were given test drugs without them ever knowing that it was a test drug.
Wow.
So these stories come up constantly. The latest effort, I don't know if you followed this, is they've started a movement to try to get grassroots organizations to get behind them and say that the company should not have to publish or make public any information about their clinical data. In other words, if they lie about clinical data, they can keep that quiet.
What is clinical data? What's
clinical
the definition
data? Is when they test a drug and they may run it on 2,000 people. Typically what you see is they already take the data that comes from that. If it's an adverse reaction, if it's death, whatever it is, they already take the data and manipulate it before it's made public.
So clinical data means data tried out in a clinic on human beings.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
A drug typically will get onto the market. It'll be out there several years. They'll be able to follow it. Then they see how many people died, how many people got sick, what are the adverse reactions. And the clinical data is very important for a couple of reasons. Obviously, it's important for regulators. So if you start hiding it, you're hiding it from regulators too. Secondly, it's important to doctors to know some doctors really do ask the question, is this drug going to kill my patient? Especially any drug that's come out in the last 10 years. I would never recommend anybody, unless they absolutely had to have the drug for a life-saving event, I would recommend not to take a drug that hasn't been on the market for 10 years because of the atmosphere that we've just come through.
Yeah, you know, I tore this muscle in my shoulder. I got my arm in a sling, and I had been taking a more recent drug. It's an over-the-counter drug. It's on the market, you know, a painkiller, but they claim it's all-day relief, right? And you can probably infer what the name is, but it's a relatively new drug. And when you said that last week, I said, screw this, I'm going back to ibuprofen.
Sure. Well, you know what? The problem is the drug industry right now, Tom, feels empowered by both this administration and the Supreme Court, and courts really at every level. They've been the story that you and I have already covered, and that is that now the drug industry is allowed to kill people with generic drugs, and the individual, the family of the individual that dies is not able to sue that company, even though the company clearly knew, absolutely had proof that the drug had the propensity to kill you. So now the Supreme Court's given them immunity on that. So it's this attitude that's pervading now. Right now, it's a sense of lawlessness. Worse, Tom, I've been doing this for 30 years. I have never seen the element of lawlessness as bad as it is right now.
Well, I think given what Wall Street has been able to get away with over the last, 8 or 10 years, well, really since 99, 2000, since, Graham Leach Bliley and the Commodity Futures Modernization Act, what the banksters have gotten away with has, I think, set the table for every other person in business to say, they can make billions, why can't I make billions?
It's empowered industry across the board. In some industry, their bad conduct won't kill you. This is one of the industries where their bad conduct, their cover-up, their bribery schemes, all this stuff that every day is coming out will kill you. Now, the interesting thing is, why didn't corporate media come out with this story about GlaxoSmithKline? It's because they have made a pledge to spend several $billion over a period of the next several years to buy advertising on corporate media. It's interesting to note, Tom, that the only place these stories are really surfacing in any meaningful way is RT Network, Free Speech TV, and The Guardian.
Wow.
And so I've said this so many times. If you believe that you're getting really legitimate information from corporate media, this story is example A. You try to go find a major corporate media that has reported that GlaxoSmithKline was caught bribing doctors and regulators to the tune of $500 million, buying prostitutes, buying trips, junkets, houses, cars, every kind of thing imaginable, just paying them cash to make sure that this drug sells. And you won't find the story, Tom.
Pap, when did the story break?
Oh, the story's been kicking out there for about 3 days. I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, it started emerging. End of last week.
Yeah. So it might be an obscure piece in the financial papers, but it'll be in the context of what will be the impact on the stock price.
Yes, it won't be in the impact of what does this mean for consumers, but what it means for consumers, Tom, is that you simply cannot. It is a world of caveat emptor, and that is you have got to do your own research. And the only thing I tell people when they call about asking questions about this, do not take a chance. For every drug that comes on the market right now, Tom, there are a dozen other drugs that have been out there that do the same thing, that have been on the market for a longer period of time. You have a better track record. You can understand whether the drug has the potential to kill you or not.
Yeah, so we are now living in that libertarian, free market, unregulated paradise. And, Doc!
Very accurate.
Right, okay. Mike Papantonio, host of Ring of Fire Radio, attorney. RingofFireRadio.com is the website. Pap, always great to hear from you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for being with us. We'll be